Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well today. And if you're not, maybe we can talk about it later. But right now, we have things to do. Now, if you have been joining us in the past, you'll notice that unfortunately, Daryl is not with us today. It's just me. And unfortunately, Nene is not with us today. It's just me. So, yeah. It's just me. And it's good to see all of you here this morning. Good morning, Cambiz and Gidi and Farah and Husham. And hopefully some other people will be coming. We have, for people who join us through our Zoom stream or link, we have a new link today. And so for those of you, I don't know if anyone goes through Facebook and Zoom or not, but if you go through the Clearwater Baha'i website, they haven't changed the link there yet. And so you might be waiting to get in. But the new link has been sent out. They just haven't posted it yet. And I don't have everyone's personal information to be able to send it. So hopefully next week we'll have that straightened out. But for those of you that are here, again, I want to say good morning. And of course, if you are someone who is used to joining us through Zoom and you can't get in, and maybe you're somewhere on Facebook, you can get there through my personal Facebook page. Just go to Anthony Ballard and you can get there that way. But let's first start out with a prayer for guidance. My God, the object of my adoration, the goal of my desire, the all-bountiful, the most compassionate. All life is of thee, and all power lieth within the grasp of thine omnipotence. Whosoever thou exaltest is raised above the angels, and attaineth the station. Verily, we uplifted him to a place on high. And whosoever thou dost abase is made lower than dust, nay, less than nothing. O divine providence, though wicked, sinful, and intemperate, we still seek from thee a seat of truth, and long to behold the countenance of the omnipotent King. It is thine to command, and all sovereignty belongeth to thee, and the realm of might boweth before thy behest. Everything thou doest is pure justice, nay, the very essence of grace. One gleam from the splendors of thy name, the all-merciful, sufficeth to banish and blot out every trace of sinfulness from the world. And a single breath from the breezes of the day of thy revelation is enough to adorn all mankind with a fresh attire. Vouchsafe thy strength, O Almighty One, unto thy weak creatures, and quicken them who are as dead, that haply they may find thee and may be led unto the ocean of thy guidance, and may remain steadfast in thy cause. Should the fragrance of thy praise be shed abroad by any of the diverse tongues of the world, out of the east or out of the west, it would verily be prized and greatly cherished. If such tongues, however, be deprived of that fragrance, they assuredly would be unworthy of any mention, be they words or thoughts. We beg of thee, O Providence, to show thy way unto all men, and to guide them aright. Thou art verily the Almighty, the most powerful, the all-knowing, the all-seeing. And this is a prayer by Bahá'u'lláh. And let me make one little adjustment here. And I see Andy got in. Glad you got the text, Andy. How you doing?
Yeah, so am I.
Yeah, that was it's a good thing you were paying attention. Excellent. Now, folks, today, as you know, we didn't meet last week because of the holy day that we had last week. And so, but we are picking up again from our book, The Advent of Divine Justice. Excuse me, my mouth is a little dry, and I have some beet juice over here I forgot to drink, so hang on for a second.
Give him the beet juice and free his soul.
Oh my God, give him the beet juice. That's good, Andy. It's one of my favorite songs too. Give me the beat. Well, yeah. Who was it? Dobie Gray? Yeah. But today, that was a really corny joke, but it was a good one. But today, I have to find where we have to start because I've read so far ahead. I do have it marked, but hang on for just one moment. Yes. Today is the 17th. I don't know why I put 7/19 there. So today, folks, we are continuing again with our book, The Advent of Divine Justice by Shoghi Effendi. And a few days ago, actually, Kambi sent me an email with some facts about Shoghi Effendi. I won't go through all of them, but and it's a really interesting read, Kambi, so I want to say thanks for that. But for people who don't know who is this Shoghi Effendi, because again, if you're not familiar very familiar with the Baha'i faith or with the Baha'i writings, you might be wondering, who is this Shoghi Effendi? Well, Shoghi Effendi, first of all, let's first kind of put it in context. Every messenger of God, once their faith is established, they know they're not going to be here on earth forever. And so they pass along the, let's say, the job of leadership and guidance to someone. They usually choose someone specific. Okay? Bahá'u'lláh chose his son, Abdul-Baha. Well, Abdul-Baha had to do the same thing. And he chose his grandson, Shoghi Effendi. And Shoghi Effendi, basically, to use a term that now is used often in a pejorative way, but it's a good thing in this case, Shoghi Effendi was groomed for the position of guiding the faith. And the title that he is referred to, that we used to refer to him, is the guardian. Now, after Shoghi Effendi, guidance was passed along, or leadership was passed along to, I believe it was the Hands of the Cause, who then formed the Universal House of Justice, which is the source of guidance for globally for the Baha'i faith today. Nini just logged on. Hi, Nini. So it just kind of puts it in context why what he said, why what Shoghi Effendi says is important. Shoghi Effendi is not a prophet, neither was Abdul-Baha. Bahá'u'lláh, of course, was, but Abdul-Baha was chosen, and Shoghi Effendi is chosen. So that's one of the reasons that makes this book so important. At the time that this book was, that this letter was sent by Shoghi Effendi, he was guiding the faith. Okay, And what he has pointed out up to this point, of course, is that, America, the American Baha'i believers at that time in 1938 were very, very important because they had the resources and had fewer obstacles that they had and challenges that they had to deal with in guiding the faith. Okay, and so all of the praise that he heaped upon him that we previously read, certainly, of course, it was sincere, but it was also, hey, you can accomplish great things and have accomplished great things, but it is because you have the resources and because you're not having to deal with the challenges that many of the other Baha'is at the time were dealing with. And in certain ways, that continues today. So I just wanted to kind of give a little context there. He points out that theirs will be the duty and privilege in their capacity, first as the establishers, as one of the most powerful pillars sustaining the edifice of the universal house of justice. And he goes on, and he basically just, again, points out many reasons that the American believers are positioned to help move the faith along at that time. And so to pick it up from where we left off, he continues, how great, therefore, how staggering the responsibility that must weigh upon the present generation of the American believers at this early stage in their spiritual and administrative evolution, to weed out by every means in their power those faults, habits, and tendencies which they have inherited from their own nation, and to cultivate patiently and prayerfully those distinctive qualities and characteristics that are so indispensable to their effective participation in the great redemptive work of their faith. It needs to be pointed out as well, I neglected to say, that Shoghi Effendi also pointed out that the entire society of America has some issues. He pointed out we have some real issues, excessive materialism being one of them, some other things being racism, prejudice, and so forth. I'm not sure that we covered that at this point as of yet, but he does cover that in this letter. But again, he says, how staggering the responsibility. You come from a society that's got some real issues, and so you have to weed out by every means they have to weed out by every means in their power those faults, habits, and tendencies which they have inherited from their own nation. From their own nation. And they need to, I'm putting that, they need to in there, and they need to cultivate patiently and prayerfully those distinctive qualities and characteristics that are so indispensable to their effective participation in the great redemptive work of their faith. Incapable as yet, in view of the restricted size of their community, they were small, we're still comparatively small compared to other previous dispensations. Incapable as yet, in view of the restricted size of their community and the limited influence it now wields of producing any market effect on the great mass of their countrymen. Again, you're small. Of producing any market effect on the great mass of their countrymen. Let them focus. He's telling them, this is what you should do. Let them focus for the present on their own selves, their own individual needs, their own personal deficiencies and weaknesses, ever mindful that every intensification of effort on their part will better equip them for the time when they will be called upon to eradicate in their turn such evil tendencies from the lives and the hearts of the entire body of their fellow citizens. He's telling the American Baha'i believers that you need to work on, several things, and I wrote them here in words that I would probably use. Baha'is must first self-correct. American Baha'is, we have to correct ourselves. We have to get ourselves in line with the Word of God. Self-correct and self-nourish. We have to feed ourselves spiritually, and we have to self-develop. Self-correct, self-nourish, and self-develop, because we have to provide the positive examples to those other people, those other non-Baha'is in this society. He goes on to say, and again, let me repeat why he says it, to eradicate in their turn such evil tendencies from the lives and the hearts of the entire body, meaning the entire American society, the entire body of their fellow citizens. Obviously, that's a big job and a hard job to do. He goes on, nor must they overlook the fact that the world order in caps, nor must they overlook the fact that the world order, whose basis they, as the advance guard of the future Baha'i generations of their countrymen, they are now laboring to establish, I'm really messing this sentence up. Let me just go ahead and start again. Nor must they overlook the fact that the world order whose basis they, as the advanced guard of the future Baha'i generations of their countrymen, are now laboring to establish, can never be reared unless and until the generality of the people to which they belong have been already purged from the diverse ills, whether social or political, that now so severely afflict it. We have to work on ourselves, but we have to face the fact that, we can't be this island of let's say, positive attributes and think that that's enough. No, we as North American Baha'is, he's telling us that, again, nor must they overlook the fact that the world order, we can't overlook that we are basing our actions, our decisions, our development on this world order. And we are the advance guard of the future Baha'i generations in our society. And we are now laboring to establish that society that we are now laboring to establish, that society, he says, can never be reared unless and until the generality of the people, in other words, the general population, unless the general population, my word, to which we belong, have been already purged from the diverse ills, whether social or political, that now so severely afflict it. Moving on. That paragraph in of itself, we could spend all day talking about it. Surveying as a whole the most pressing needs of this community. In other words, let's look at what you need most. Surveying as a whole the most pressing needs of this community, attempting to estimate the more serious deficiencies by which this community, it, is being handicapped in the discharge of its task, and ever bearing in mind the nature of that still greater task which it will be forced to wrestle in the future. Let's keep in mind that you've got some issues here. You're handicapped by some things. And Shoghi Effendi says, I feel it my duty to lay special stress upon and draw the special and urgent attention of the entire body of the American believers, be they young or old, white or colored, the respectable term that was used in that day, teachers or administrators, veterans or newcomers. I feel it my duty to lay special stress to draw special attention to what I firmly believe are the essential requirements for the success of the tasks which are now claiming their undivided attention. Again, the American believers. I firmly, again, to draw special attention to what I firmly believe are the essential requirements for the success of the tasks which are now claiming their undivided attention. Excuse me, let me put my glasses on for a second. Adam got the text. How you doing, Adam? Hi, Gila. We're glad you're here. He continues, great as is the importance of fashioning the outward instruments and of perfecting the administrative agencies which they can utilize for the prosecution of their dual task under the 7-year plan, the plan that was in place at that time. Vital and urgent as are the campaigns which they are initiating, the schemes and projects which they are devising, and the funds which they are raising, for the efficient conduct of both the teaching and temple work, the imponderable, the spiritual factors which are bound up with their own individual and inner lives, and with which are associated their human and social relationships, are no less urgent and vital, and demand constant scrutiny, continual self-examination, and heart-searching on their part, lest their value be impaired or their vital necessity be obscured or forgotten. We got to talk about that. We've got to. So let's go back and look at what he says here. Okay? He's pointing out that, these things that have been pointing out, Adam, you need to mute yourself. He's pointing out that these things, the big goals, the big objectives, what are those? He says, great as is the importance of fashioning the outward instruments, those things people can see, the temples, the houses of worship, etc. And great as is the importance of perfecting the administrative agencies. Again, this is an organized faith. So yes, there are various committees and so forth that are a part of this organization. Great as is the importance of perfecting the administrative agencies. Adam, you need to mute yourself. Great as is the importance of fashioning the outward instruments and of perfecting the administrative agencies which they can utilize for the prosecution of their dual task under the 7-year plan. He's saying these campaigns, these teaching campaigns, are important. The outward things that people can see, very important. But then he says, raising funds for the furthering of the faith. Very, very important. The imponderable, the spiritual factors, which are bound up with their own individual and inner lives. Again, he's saying you have to have the right conduct to be able to teach and to do temple work. And he says, all that's important. But then he goes on and says, the imponderable, the spiritual factors, which are bound up with their own individual and inner lives, and with which are associated their human and social relationships, are no less urgent and vital. You can do the work of the faith, the big stuff, but doing the big stuff also requires that you stay focused on your personal relationships. I mean, it's so easy to get, involved in these big plans and these big, the long-term stuff, and to almost like cut ourselves off from our friends and family and so forth. Shoghi Effendi here is saying, no, you can't do that. He's saying the imponderable, the spiritual factors which are bound up with their own individual and inner lives, and with which are associated their human and social relationships, are no less urgent and vital, and demand constant scrutiny, continual self-examination, and heart-searching on their part. So you can't forget, again, your personal relationships, those people whose lives you affect, and also those people whose paths you cross. Those are just as important. We have to be that living example. And I got to tell you, my toes are hurting right now because it's hard for me to read this without thinking about my own personal relationships. And, when we're driving in traffic, are we the best example? When we're having interactions, maybe with total strangers, are we that positive example that we're told we still have to be? We can't think that all of our energies just go into the building of this faith and the outward signs of it. We also have to pay close attention to making sure that we are interacting positively with those people with whom we share relationships and so forth. And so I know I've spent a lot of time on that, but it's really, really important that we understand the importance of that. Of these spiritual prerequisites of success, so there are spiritual prerequisites of success. Of these spiritual prerequisites of success, which constitute the bedrock on which the security of all teaching plans, temple projects, and financial schemes must ultimately rest. Did you hear what he said there? All these other big things, teaching plans, temple projects, financial schemes ultimately rest on the spiritual prerequisites of success. And now he's going to list what those prerequisites are. The following stand out as preeminent and vital, which the members of the American Baha'i community will do well to ponder. So you better think about this. Upon the extent, I'm going to read this sentence first because it's long and kind of winding, and then I'm going to go back and kind of break it down. Upon the extent to which these basic requirements are met and the manner in which the American believers fulfill them in their individual lives, administrative activities, and social relationships must depend the measure of the manifold blessings which the all-bountiful possessor can vouchsafe to them all. Yeah, like I said, a bit long and winding. So I'm going to break that down, and I'm going to kind of turn it around. Let's put it this way. Not that it's better, but from a listening standpoint, it might be a little clearer. Where is it? Okay. The measure of the manifold blessings, the many blessings which the all-bountiful possessor can vouchsafe to them all, must depend upon the extent to which these basic requirements are met. What are those basic requirements? Those spiritual prerequisites. Upon the extent to which these basic requirements are met and the manner in which the American believers fulfill them in their individual lives. So we have to think about this not just on the big community level or the societal level or the global level. We have to think about this on as far as self. Remember what we said about self-development? What was it? Self-correcting, self-nourishing, self-developing. This is what he's talking about, developing those personal spiritual prerequisites within ourselves, those spiritual attributes. And then he lists what these spiritual attributes are. Listen to this. These requirements, these spiritual attributes, are none other than a high sense of moral rectitude, moral correctness, shall we say, righteousness, if you will, a high sense of moral rectitude in their social and administrative activities, absolute chastity in their individual lives, and complete freedom from prejudice in their dealings with peoples of a different race, class, creed, or color. That's pretty big, isn't it? Especially today. Yeah, this was written in 1938. But tell me that this isn't still relevant today. And hopefully your toes aren't hurting as much as mine are. I'm going to read that sentence again. What are those spiritual prerequisites of success for the faith? These requirements are none other. Well, you know what? Before I do that, remember that this also follows that whole thing about if you want these blessings. Okay? Remember, the measure of the manifold blessings which the all-bountiful possessor, God, can vouchsafe to them all, must depend upon the extent to which these basic requirements are met. And again, what are those requirements? These requirements are none other than a high sense of moral rectitude in their social and administrative activities, absolute chastity in their individual lives, and complete freedom from prejudice in their dealings with peoples of a different race, class, creed, or color. And you know, creed even is one of those words that I've certainly used many times, I've heard many times, figured I know what it means, but I still looked it up anyway. So what is a creed? A set of beliefs or aims which guide someone's actions. Let's face it, it's real easy to find people today who clearly are living by a creed that is different from what we believe in. And yet Shoghi Effendi is telling us we still have to have complete freedom from prejudice in our dealings with peoples of a different race, class, creed, or color. He continues. The first especially, you know what, I'm noticing the time. Maybe before I continue this, I think maybe we'll have a little break for a song. Hopefully, I've done a reasonable job. It's a lot easier when we got someone we can bounce off of, and not that you all don't count, you do. But I'll admit, I think I'm a little more visual. And so anyway, no, I'm in the mood to do sanctuary for various reasons. So, one moment, let me set up my little doohickey here. One moment. I hope everyone is still doing well. Huh? And I hope that I'm doing a reasonable job of breaking this down so everyone can really understand what we're saying. Again, what Shoghi Effendi is saying is that you want to build a world, you got to make sure your own house is in order too. When I'm feeling lonely and forsaken, when the world hangs heavy on my mind, when my joy for living has been taken, I come to you, Lord, and I always find sanctuary. Sanctuary. When my problems seem without solution, when it seems they just won't go away, when I'm overcome by life's confusion, you light my path and you prepare a way to sanctuary. Sometimes I lose all faith, and all I seem to do is grieve. You remove my difficulties, give me reason to believe in you. I know with you that I'm protected, and the stronghold of your defense. You comfort me when I'm rejected. You lift my spirits, give me confidence in your sanctuary. Sanctuary. I sing that song a lot when I'm really feeling like Oh man, I need to remind myself sometimes, even when you're feeling at your lowest, there's still God there to depend on. And I want to say good morning to Suzanne, who we haven't seen in a while. It's good to see you, Suzanne. And I also want to say good.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. We're so glad that you're back with us. Wonderful.
My video doesn't seem to work, but
Say that
I'm
again.
here.
Okay, well, yes, I saw your name pop up, and I said, there's Suzanne. And hello, Sheila. We saw you jump in here, too. Hello, Sheila. And I just want to say a special hello to my brother. He's on our Facebook stream right now. Won't tell you the interesting story, but we have the same name. Okay? Like I said, won't tell you the interesting story. But to get back to, remember, Shoghi Effendi here is telling us, yes, you have to be concerned. The American believers, the North American believers, you got to be concerned about, the long-reaching goals, the far, the major objectives of the faith. But you also have to have your personal lives in order. And he named those spiritual prerequisites that are necessary on the individual level. Again, a high sense of moral rectitude in their social and administrative activities, absolute chastity in their individual lives, and complete freedom from prejudice in their dealings with peoples of a different race, class, creed, or color. And then he goes on. He says the first is specially, though not exclusively, directed to their elected representatives. Think about this. What was that? A high sense of moral rectitude in their social and administrative activities. Then he says the first. That was the first of those things he listed. The first is especially, though not exclusively, directed to their elected representatives, whether local, regional, or national, who in their capacity as the custodians and members of the nascent institutions of the faith of Bahá'u'lláh are shouldering the chief responsibility of laying an unassailable foundation for that universal house of justice, which, as its title implies, is to be the exponent and guardian of that divine justice which can alone ensure the security of and establish the reign of law and order in a strangely disordered world. So he's saying that this whole thing about rectitude of conduct and so forth, high sense of moral rectitude, is first, specially, though not exclusively, directed to our elected representatives. And then he lists them, whether local, regional, or national. So, we're not getting political here, but we need to be thinking about that with our chosen leaders. He then goes on to say, and notice he also described this world as a strangely disordered world. So that's the first thing. The second is mainly and directly concerned with the Baha'i youth. We need to be guiding them. So what does he say? Why the Baha'i youth? The second is mainly and directly concerned with the Baha'i youth, who can contribute so decisively to the virility, the purity, and the driving force of the life of the Baha'i community. And upon them must depend the future orientation of its destiny and the complete unfoldment of the potentialities with which God has endowed it. You often hear people say, the youth are the leaders of tomorrow. Well, Shoghi Effendi basically is saying the same thing. You want to make sure that you establish this positive faith on a global scale. Yes, you have to choose good leaders, but you also have to develop your youth. I'll read that again. The second is mainly and the second is mainly and directly concerned with the Baha'i youth, who can contribute so decisively to the virility, the purity, and the driving force of the life of the Baha'i community, and upon whom we have to depend on them, and upon whom must depend the future orientation of its destiny, it being the Baha'i community. and the complete unfoldment of the potentialities which God has endowed it. The third, and again, remember, what are these, prerequisites? These goals. The third should be the immediate, the universal, and the chief concern of all and sundry members of the Baha'i community, of whatever age, rank, experience, class, or color, as all, with no exception, must face its challenging implications. And none can claim, however much he may have progressed along this line, to have completely discharged the stern responsibilities which it inculcates. So those prerequisites, they apply to our elected leaders, they apply to what we're doing with our youth, and again, all the members of the Baha'i community. And just, again, Shoghi Effendi, he writes in very specific language. So we might say, well, all the members of the Baha'i community, and figure, well, we get that, that's all, isn't it? Well, he says, no, let me make sure that you got it. Whatever age, whatever rank, whatever experience, whatever class or color. And then just to make sure you still got it, as all, with no exception, must face its challenging implications. And none can claim, however much he may have progressed along these lines, developing these spiritual prerequisites, none can claim, however much he may have progressed along this line, to have completely discharged the stern responsibilities which it inculcates. I really want to continue, but I think that's probably a good place to stop, because I'll go ahead and tell you, while Shoghi Effendi is, no. I am going to read this last paragraph, and I think the next place would be a better place to stop. So I'll try not to go into so much, commentary. But he says, a rectitude of conduct, he mentioned that earlier, a rectitude of conduct, an abiding sense of undeviating justice. A rectitude of conduct, an abiding sense of undeviating justice, unobscured by the demoralizing influence which a corruption-ridden political life so strikingly manifests. Tell me he's not talking to us today. So again, I'll read that and then continue. A rectitude of conduct, an abiding sense of undeviating justice, unobscured by the demoralizing influences which a corruption-ridden political life so strikingly manifests. A chaste, pure, and holy life, unsullied and unclouded by the indecencies, the vices, the false standards which an inherently deficient moral code tolerates, perpetuates, and fosters. A fraternity freed from that cancerous growth of racial prejudice, which is eating into the vitals of an already debilitated society. These are the ideals which the American believers must from now on, individually and through concerted action, strive to promote in both their private and public lives. Ideals which are the chief propelling forces that can most effectively accelerate the march of their institutions, plans, and enterprises, that can guard the honor, integrity of their faith, and subdue any obstacles that may confront it in the future. So what were those things that we really need to be working on, and not just working on, but promoting? Yes, a rectitude of conduct, an abiding sense of undeviating justice. We should always be working for justice. And he says, unobscured by the demoralizing influences which a corruption-ridden political life so strikingly manifests. Notice he doesn't tell us, steer clear of politics. We often hear people say that. That's kind of hard to do in this day and time anyway. But he says, yeah, you've got to steer clear of the corruption that seems to be just a part of political life. And then he goes on again, a chaste, pure, and holy life. And then he says, a fraternity, the groups that you're involved with, a fraternity freed from that cancerous growth of racial prejudice, which is eating into the vitals of an already debilitated society. These are the ideals which the American believers must, from now on, individually and through concerted action, not just say this is how I feel, through concerted action, strive to promote in both their private and public lives. Wow. You want to establish a faith? You want to promote a faith? These are the things that we need to be working on. You want to make the world a better place? These are the things that Shoghi Effendi tells us we should be working on. And with that, I am going to go ahead and stop because I keep making, I know that I need Daryl here to keep me in line and kind of keep me from going on and on and on. But what we're going to do now is we are going to go ahead and have some prayers and songs by others. And as always, we like to start out with our Candies moment, and then we'll follow that with Andy. I hope you're getting ready, Andy. But Candies, do you have something to share with us today?
Sure.
Why, thank you, Candies. Thank you so much, Cambies. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to share?
Oh, Lord. Let me know.
Oh, that's all right.
Oh, excuse me.
Okay, Andy. Azita, would you like to share?
Me?
Yes, please. Well, actually,
Okay.
whoever wants that was going to. Yes, go ahead, Suzanne.
Yes, okay. O Lord, make this youth radiant and confer thy bounty upon this poor creature. Bestow upon him knowledge, grant him added strength with the break of every morn, and guard him within the shelter of thy protection, so that he may be freed from error, may devote himself to the service of thy cause, may guide the wayward, lead the hapless, free the captives, and awaken the heedless, that all may be blessed with thy remembrance and praise. Thou art the mighty and the powerful.
Thank you, Suzanne. Is there anyone else who would like to share?
بابا ای پروردگار این نفس پاک توجه به ملکوت تو نمود و تسلط و سایی کرد تا به حال اسیر ناسود بود حال قصد فرود در ملکوت بقا نمود و توجه به جهان روحانی کرد و امید الطاف نامتناهی داشت. ای آمرزگار گنه بیامرز و عفو و غفران مقصود دار. این تشنه را به چشمه حیات رسان و این ماهی را در بحر بی‌پایان بده تا این طفل به گلشن رحمانی پرواز نماید و در حقایق عفو و مغفرت نامتناهی درآید. توی آمرزنده و بخشنده و مهربان عبدالبها عباس.
Thank you, Gila. Is there anyone else who would like to share?
Thank you so much.
Is there anyone else who would like to share? Well then, friends, let me make my regular adjustment here when I'm having to do this by myself, so hang on for just a moment. I think that hopefully will do it. I know I've already mentioned that my brother's here, but I love seeing his name up on the Facebook screen. Again, this is a regular Sunday. We've been doing this for 2.5 years now, roughly. And again, it is a group community effort. We come to you through the kindness of the Clearwater Baha'is who stream us through their website, and you can find these devotions also on my personal Facebook page, but you can also go to YouTube and find them because the Clearwater Baha'i community posts them on their webpage, post them on YouTube afterwards. If you are someone who is interested in learning more about the faith, there are some definitive websites that you can go to. One is BahaiTeachings.org. They send out an awful lot of various readings and so forth that are as well as directly from the writings of the faith, also various people's perspective and so forth. I like to think of it as, again, that practical guide to developing spiritually. And also the Baha'i.us, and Baha'i.org, and also ClearwaterBaha'is.org, Baha'i.us, Baha'i.org, and ClearwaterBaha'is.org. And I know the folks in the Zoom can't see that because of the glare, but you don't need to see it. You already know these things. I do want to again also say especially, I hope you feel better soon, Daryl, and hope that you're back here next week. I do want to mention that next week there is a group in Great Britain that they, like so many, has regular Zoom devotionals and deepenings and so forth. There's one called Harry's Deepening, that they're going to be doing next week at our time. It's 1 o'clock Eastern time, U.S. time. And I'm going to be, hopefully Daryl will be helping me out, and Ken Bees will be, hopefully he's consented to help us with the devotional portion of that program. And it's at 1 o'clock our time. I say our time, meaning Eastern U.S. time. Wherever you are, it's 1 o'clock Eastern U.S. time. I probably shouldn't have said that because Daryl was telling me it's 12 o'clock. So I better check on that and see if I need to make a necessary connection next week. But I do know the day is right. It's next Sunday. So we'll be telling you a little bit more about it once I get the information correct. And as Daryl always says, no matter what you do, while you're out there, make sure you spread the love. Hope to see you again next week. In the meantime, let your vision be world embracing. Let your vision be world embracing. Let your vision be world embracing. Have a good week, folks.
Thank you, Tony.
And
I think you told me it's at 12 o'clock.
Oh, it is 12 o'clock? Okay.
That's what you said.
Okay, 12 o'clock. All righty. I'll be sure to repeat it the right way next week. Thanks for the correction, Cambies. I appreciate it. Everybody logging on at 1 o'clock and wonder what's going on. Have a good week, folks. Take care. Spread the love. See you next week.
Hey, thank you.
And thank you, Dee.
Thanks, Tony.
Take care, Andy. Take care, Husham. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Tony.
And thank you, Farrell.
Recording stopped.
متاسفانه ناقصی و دشمنی و دشمنان را